spark, solid state, and tube timber, as well as
It's noticeable to me that when I use a 4K mouse, it just feels more responsive.
you can go as fast as you can without trying to go on. Welcome back to another video, guys. Today, we're here to look at the new 4114 Aero with this design variant named as the Fragment. A bit of background on 4114. They're a new startup by very successful professional Fortnite players, Ceice and Elevate. Shout out to both of you and our positive interactions. Together, the two of them founded the company and are now producing peripherals. So Ceice contacted me via Twitter and sent me this unit, along with a personalized card that they do for everyone so far. Prior to receiving this pad, I have seen quite a few images floating around of people receiving theirs, but I had no information regarding the pad. The only thing that was in my mind was like, damn, that looks pretty cool. Now, in addition to that, there was also the sleeve, which looks phenomenal, and I was unsure how it would perform, but now that we have both in hand, let's get into the quick summary. So the quick summary for this pad is that this has entered the S+ category in my spreadsheet, and it will remain on my desk as my main for the foreseeable future. The quality of the pad is top tier. The sizing is very large and fits my preferences for larger pads because I play on low sensitivity. The surface works perfect with sleeves, both the 411 sleeve and the lizard skin sleeve. Also, the surface is a speedy surface. It's even faster than the Energon Pro, yet maintains what feels like superior consistency. It's just an all-around top tier pad. The only negative I have for this pad is that it isn't really skin friendly. Right, in terms of glide. And so you will have to use an arm sleeve if you want to use this pad, that's my opinion. But as a sleeve user, having to use a sleeve does not bother me. As for the sleeve itself, we will talk about this after the pad. Just know that the 4114 sleeve here is the first proper competition that the Lizard Skin's performance has to face. So in regards to details, features, and unboxing, well, I can't actually show you guys the flat packaged envelope because the thing is too big and it's not going to fit in the frame. But I'll leave that up to you guys for when you guys get yours so you can personally experience it. The 4114 Aero comes in at, I believe, $50 US, or for some reason, 120 Australian dollars on OzModShop. Now, unfortunately, this is very expensive for us in Australia, which I will assume is due to logistics cost for shipping of a pad this size to Australia, but there is probably a bit of markup in there too. Now, the pad measures 530 by 490 by 3mm thick, and it uses a soft pour-on base. Now, in addition, there has been a personalized letter included for all the friends and family units so far. So it's an extremely neat touch they've added to these units, and I am a huge fan of things like this, especially when the rear, as you can all see, is even wax stamped sealed shut by a 4114 logo. Now, I actually haven't even opened my letter yet, because I wanted to save it for the video, and we can all share this experience together. So here we are, let's give it an open. I got myself a little knife here, and I hope I don't chop this thing up. It is not going too well. Ah,
A few moments later.
Alright, so it turns out I am actually incompetent at opening letters, but I will keep trying my best. If I can get this to flippin' do its thing. Kind of feels like a waste to cut the wax seal open like this. And this last part's a bit too thick.
That's what she said.
Oh dear. This might need to get edited out.
No.
12 seconds later.
I actually have to chop it up. Alright. Do not do this at home, kids. You might suffer injuries. Maybe I should go this direction instead. There we go. Alright, let's give this a read. Yifang, you are a true peripheral enthusiast and one of the most knowledgeable members of our community. You go extremely in depth within your reviews and make sure to cover every detail as well as provide a lot of bonus information. We really respect your contributions to the community and could not be more excited to have you check out our Aero pad. Enjoy. Well, I'm glad they feel this way. I'm very thankful to receive this kind of feedback from everyone, and I hope everyone that watches this video likes this too. This makes me really happy because this was kind of what I set out to do. So anyway, that's the card here. Once again, thank you Ceice and for Elevate for sending me this card. This, to me, is more valuable than the pad ever will be. So moving into the base of the pad. The 4114 Aero uses a soft pour-on base. Now from my experience, this is Chinese pour-on, which means it has that kind of sticky feeling to the human touch, if you were to touch this actual sponge anyway, but the performance of it is excellent, and there's no questioning about it. The stitching on the pad is also very thin, and it's level with the surface. It doesn't get in the way of usage at all. It's a very high quality stitching, and there's also no complaints for me there. I've looked through the whole pad for that. Texture is where it gets a bit more interesting. The 414 Aero is smooth. And I'm talking Energon Pro levels of smooth under your skates. This is probably one of the smoothest pads I've ever tried as a cloth pad. Yet unlike a lot of other smooth pads, where those pads sometimes give you a feeling of inconsistency or floating, where I kind of can't even tell my mouse is touching a pad, the 4114 Aero retains texture and feedback on the skates. So it's a unique blend of being smooth yet slightly grainy, in a good way. I don't ever feel like my mouse is floating or out of control, yet the glide is smooth and feels amazing. However, this is just in reference to my mouse skate and pad interaction, being very smooth and such. The negative issue is also presented here. The 4114 Aero is not skin friendly for whatever reason, or at least that's the case for me. And by not being skin friendly, I don't mean the pad is rough on the skin like the textured pads. I mean that it seems like my forearm would get stuck onto the pad and it doesn't move. Like when I try to do this, there are bumps and stickiness on my actual forearm. So this might be one of the first pads I've ever encountered an issue where the skin doesn't work, but arm sleeves work perfectly. Because usually it's the other way around. It doesn't work with a sleeve, but you can use your skin on it. So thankfully, the 414 does have their own sleeve to even match the pad. And needless to say, this interaction, or at least this combination, works perfectly. There is no drag or anything at all. So get yourself a sleeve if you were to use this pad. Now, speaking of arm sleeves, in this bit, we will talk about both the 4114 sleeve and the pad sleeve glide. So firstly, the pad works perfectly with sleeves. Now, having used my Lizard Skin's performance on it, my arm glides perfectly and the entire issue with my arm being unable to move on the pad is fixed. So the same applies if you were to use the 4114 sleeve. Now, if you play high sensitivity and you don't even need to move your forearm, your wrist motion is enough, or you play at the edge of the pad like this, then you might not have this issue at all in the first place. Now, as for the 4114 sleeve itself, the sleeve comes in 4 sizes from small to extra large. And this one here is the large. Now, unfortunately, it is too tight for me, so I have ordered an XL as well to give that a go. Feels kind of good knowing that I am getting huge and I can no longer fit large sleeves. Haha, yes, every gym goer's dream. The Lizard Skin's performance comes only in 2 adult sizes of small/medium and large/X large, because it is a lot more stretchy, so it's more of a one size fits most kind of solution. Now, it definitely feels like a safer buy to buy the Lizard Skin's performance if you're not too sure about your size. In terms of feel, the Lizard Skin's performance still feels a bit more premium and well built than the 414. Like, you touch them both and you can just tell that the Lizard Skin's feels a lot better on the skin, it feels smoother and higher quality. Nonetheless, both feel silky smooth. Now, where the 414 sleeve pulls ahead is that the stitched seam is on the inside of the sleeve, so it's not actually touching the outside of the pad, unlike the Lizard Skin's performance where the seam is on the outside. And so you have to position this on your arm so that it's somewhere like on the side where it doesn't actually end up touching the pad, because that seam will feel weird. Other than that, the aesthetics of the 414 sleeve also look significantly better. That is a no-brainer, at least to me. Maybe you guys like the pink guy sleeve a bit more, or whatever other solid color options Lizard Skins comes in. In addition, if you do know your own size, the 414 sleeve does have better fit in that sense, because it is a lot tighter, and especially this rimmed rubber edge, this herringbone edge, is actually a lot more tensioned. So both on the wrist end and the bicep end, this means that you'll get a better fit without as much rolling and curling of the sleeve on your arm during use. Now, other than that, both sleeves glide perfectly on all the pads that glide with sleeves I've tried it on so far. So this gets an extremely high passing grade, and both cost approximately 30 to 35 Australian dollars if you are here in Australia. I can't say the same for those of you overseas. You guys will have to look up your prices. Now, back to the pad. The pad is fast, and by fast, I mean Energon Pro levels of speed, or perhaps even a little bit more. Yet, the control is well maintained, and I felt it being absolutely perfect to use in faster paced games like Apex and the finals, both of which I've been playing a lot more of and enjoying a lot since getting this pad. But also, I've been playing far too much Valorant and I do need a bit of a change. Now, I'd recommend this pad for low to medium sensitivity in any game. So let's jump straight into comparisons, because I think it's easier for you guys to get a grasp of this pad if I told you some comparisons. Now, obviously, when it comes to comparisons, I've been talking about the Energon Pro the entire time, so let's start with the Energon Pro, and I also think this is probably the closest competitor that I've tried so far. Unfortunately, my pad's a bit damaged because I lent it to friends downstairs, and yeah, people don't take care of their stuff. Skipping aside everything and just talking about the surface. The Energon Pro is definitely smoother than the 4114 Aero, both in terms of glide and especially on your skin. You can use the Energon Pro or the Energon without a sleeve, 100%. This is probably one of the nicest feeling pads you'll ever touch with skin, but the 4114 Aero, you need to use a sleeve. And speaking of which, touching this, you can tell the difference in terms of smoothness on the skin, that the Aero here is a lot rougher. Now, in addition, the glide on the Aero, despite being faster, feels a lot more controlled in terms of providing skate feedback, whereas the Energon Pro feels like I'm floating and has far less feedback on the skates, despite both pads being very smooth on the skates. The main difference maker is that the Energon Pro, despite being an X-Soft pad and a slower pad, actually provides less control than the 414 Aero does when pressing down into the pad, right? If you guys use a technique where you push into the pad for control, then you'll like the 414 Aero more. So I'm guessing the surface material of the Energon Pro, having that lycra or spandex mix, means it's a bit more elastic, and therefore even when pressing down into the pad, there's a lot more rebound and providing less control. The 4114 Aero, when pressed down into, seems to provide a lot more control than the Energon Pro. So if pressing down is something you do, it is something that I do, then you would most definitely prefer the 414 Aero. On the other hand, if you want the same speed, even when varying levels of pressure is applied to the pad, then go for the Energon Pro. So the second comparison is to the P51 Mustang. Now, I'm sure we all know that the P51 Mustang has been my main since I received it, and it's one of the pads that I've bought more than once. So skipping aside all other aspects again, aside from surface, the P51 feels noticeably slower than the Aero and more controlled. The glide on both, however, are smooth, and the Aero feels a little bit smoother, but that could be placebo due to the extra speed. The P51 works far better with no skin and sleeve. It also feels silky smooth and super nice, but if we were to add a sleeve into the equation, then both pads are excellent. In my opinion, pick based on how fast you want your pad and also sizing. So do keep in mind, the Aero is considered a very, very fast pad, if you were to ask me, one of the faster cloth pads, whereas the P51, despite being a faster pad, is still on the faster side of medium. The Aero is kind of where I'll consider the minimum speed for actually being a speed pad. Now, the Aero is a lot larger, and that's probably one of the main contributing reasons as to why I went to it. Like I always said, I wish I could get a 500x500 P51 Mustang. So who should buy the Aero? Well, it's a little bit hard to recommend this in Australia, given the cost is so high. Like, let's be real, 120 Australian dollars. I mean, the artisan pads, if you were to buy them via Osmod Shop or LGG pads, they are also about $100. But even then, that's very, very high for what pads are these days. So if this pad, from my description, sounds like what you would enjoy, I definitely think it's worth getting, even though it costs a lot. But for those of you overseas, where it's probably cheaper, then it's a no-brainer should you like smooth and fast pads. On the other hand, for us here, if you don't really know what you like, you aren't really sure that this is the pad you want, then I wouldn't recommend you guys take the gamble and buy this. There are many other pads that I reviewed that are cheaper and extremely good, and you might even like them more. But once again, I would like to thank the team over at 414 for sending out this pad to me and including me in their community. Absolute bunch of legends creating top tier products, and I really look forward to working with them more often in the future and seeing what else they come up with. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.